cork is not just cork. There are so many different types of cork and ways of putting corks together. And it's one of those other amazing details about Burl & Croft, and something that really sets us apart from everybody else. See, the history of this single small thing I have in my hand here goes back to 37. Not that the cork is from 37, but it was invented in 37. Not for us, because we didn't exist back then. But one of the founding owners of Burl & Croft today, he was from the biggest cork producing family business in the world. Before he started producing champagne, he was working with these things, so he knows about it. What he found out was that his grandfather was a visionary man. And he had, before the rest of the world even dared thinking about not just putting a small piece of cork into a champagne bottle, like you did with a normal bottle, to invent what we today have as champagne cork. So there is a very special story behind this cork, and I remember when Patrick, one of the founding owners of Burl & Croft, told it to me the first time. And he was, getting all emotional and remembering back to some of his first most important things in his business career. When he was still working with his dad at the cork producing company, they had to receive one of the most important customers at their home one day. And Patrick was supposed to have done that visit together with his father. Suddenly, a couple of days before that visit, his father has to be hospitalized for whatever reason, and Patrick freaks completely out. He goes, I'm gonna receive the top management of Dom Pérignon, and it was their absolutely most important customer. And he had no clue what to do. So he was thinking, how do I impress them? How do I, little Mr. Sabate here? My dad is not here, and it's the first time I'm supposed to do something really important. He was thinking, he said, what can I serve them? Can I take them to a great restaurant? What can I do here? And he thought maybe there would be one vintage of Dom Pérignon in the history of the estate that even the current top management would never have tasted. That would be so rare because of some condition that they wouldn't even have it in the cellars there. He thought that would be cool if I got a bottle of, if it even exists. So he calls up one of his good friends in Switzerland, a great wine collector. And they managed in finding out that there is one vintage of Dom Pérignon that you cannot even find in the cellars there. So he identifies that vintage and he gets one of these bottles. Had it flown down to Spain and he was all, super excited. So Spain in the morning, month of August, 40 degrees Celsius, they're driving around and he is a nerve wreck. Because are they going to understand that they open this bottle and all the things? So they drive through all of these cork plantations. They get up to this small, he had set up like a small tent for a lunch or breakfast. He drives up there and he's thinking, what's going to happen? He walks up and he asks the technical director here, please go ahead, why don't you serve a glass of your champagne for us? Because all of the bottles of Dom Pérignon, even back then, from a distance look the same. So Mr. Foulon was his name. He goes up and he takes the bottle, looks at it and all becomes very emotional, turns to Patrick and said, how did you know? And then, when Patrick told me this story, I got so emotional and I never tasted that vintage of Dom Pérignon. I said, so how was the wine? And Patrick just looks at me and said, I can't remember. I said, what? Because all that he could see is that when the bottle was opened, there was actually still a little bit of gas in it, and it was an old bottle. I said, that's weird, because usually champagnes that are aged for 50 or 60 years loses the pressure inside of them. So he looked at the cork, because it had to do something with the cork. He saw his grandfather's initials on the cork, and then he became, he did not know. Nobody knew. So he took the cork and he looked at it, and not only did it carry his grandfather's initials, but it was a cork that was put together by pieces of cork, by 5 pieces. And now, that kind of cork was not invented until the 70s, but apparently it was. No other champagne would have been using a cork put together by pieces by then. It used to be a cylindrical piece like a bottle of red wine. So he looked at this and he thought, must have been preserving that bottle of Dom Pérignon very well. So maybe there's something about this I should look into. So his grandfather had already passed away, so he couldn't ask him. His grandmother was still alive, so he drove to the house and they managed in finding some old notebooks with his grandfather's sketches and ideas of how to make the ultimate champagne cork for champagnes that are intended for long aging. So you take 5 pieces of cork, put them together at different angles to make always sure that the part here, that is where the bottleneck ends, is always flexible, and so the bottle remains hermetically closed. You can only do that by ensuring that this layer here remains hermetic, that it does not take too much champagne in, because if that happens, this layer here keeps absorbing champagne up to here. The cork becomes wet. By becoming wet, because champagne is highly acidic, it dries out and it loses the flexibility in the cork. So the angle here is open so much that it takes in champagne, and that layer dries out. The champagne doesn't go further up into the cork, so the remainder of the cork remains flexible. So it's a cork that can be used for champagnes aged for a long time. And we reinvented this only for B&K. So they are made by hand by an old man in Spain. We couldn't find anybody else to do it. Each piece of the 5 pieces are cut out by hand, assembled by hand, and put into our bottles by hand. It cost 11 euros to produce one cork. Most corks cost 25 cents. The story about the cork itself is pretty cool, but we didn't want to stop just there. See, this is a normal capsule, and this here is what is really on the bottles. Now this capsule here is made by 18 carats of gold. It's 9 grams solid, and it carries on the front of it our logo, which are 2 lions protecting a palm tree, protecting a pelican. Of course, there's a story to that too. And on the back of this beautiful thing, there is the name of B&K. There is also the name of the bottle. All of our bottles are numbered. And usually this would carry the initials of the person that bought the bottle, to give them something special, a memory of the bottle. And this is just another of the details that is a little bit different about B&K.